am here with Matt Kosoy of Rosalind Bakery in Pacifica, California. And as you can see, we are on location inside the bakery. Appreciate you, Matt, for having me, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Of course. Thanks for inviting me, Dave.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Right off the bat, just, introduce yourself, where you're from, where you grew up, and your your ethnic background.
So I grew up in a suburb of Philadelphia called Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and was raised ethnically as like a Reformed Jew, Eastern European heritage. So we grew up with those types of holidays, Passover, Yom Kippur, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what'd you eat growing up then?
Bagels. Kugel.
Yeah. What's the second thing you said?
Kugel, which is a type of noodle pudding my paternal grandmother would make at family gatherings.
Okay.
But as we grew up into like teenagers, we were exposed to a lot of Italian cooking through a close family friend and a neighbor, and that kind of resonated deeply with me at a young age. And then like comfort food that you'd find in the suburbs, like sandwiches and pizza, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
bagels.
And the bagels.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'm an East Coaster, so
yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the water?
Yeah, it is.
So some of the dishes that you grew up with, like you mentioned the kugel, what's in that? Like specifically, like
It's like a rice pudding, but made with egg noodles.
okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's baked with a graham cracker crust and hella brown sugar, and you put sour cream on it, and it's just super sweet and savory at the same time.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
really not good for your arteries.
Yeah. Yeah, can't eat too much of it.
Nah.
In moderation.
Everything.
Everything's in moderation.
Including moderation.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Did you so you had some of the kind of gold standard stuff from the East Coast with bagels and everything.
Yes.
What were some of your favorites, and is there anything you didn't like too?
I hated olives and like gefilte fish growing up. Those things were just awful substances that nobody should ever really spend too much time eating. I take the olive part back now, but the gefilte fish was really, really awful as a kid. I don't know. I ate everything. I wasn't really opposed to too many different flavors.
Just you got a lot of exposure to different things. With the Italian neighbors, what were some of the things that were getting you hyped up about?
It was like just the method of cooking. It was the whole tomatoes going into a stock pot to make a fresh sauce quick, and instead of going through the can or the jar, that type of stuff. And
the slow cook.
Yeah. There was he exposed us to a matriciana, which was we never really had that before. I was
okay.
14.
Tell us what that is.
Oh, it's a pasta dish with like a bacon or guanciale or prosciutto. That's part of the sauce, and it's not like a thick, heavy red sauce, and it's always made with a bucatini, which is like a noodle that's got a hole in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like pork cheek.
Yeah.
Nice.
Not quite carbonara. It does have tomatoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good, though.
It's super good. Yeah. It was that one really began to set off like a whole lifelong appreciation for cooking food and making food at home and eventually here.
Yeah, and we'll get into that for sure. And then you obviously have some influences in your life. Obviously, your grandmother and your mother. Why don't you tell us about who the bakery's named after, which is your grandmother, Rosalind?
Yeah.
Tell us about her.
Sure. So my grandmother, Rosalind Rabin, was a big part of my life growing up. My mom's mom, she would always be there to help us out whenever parents needed coverage, especially like summer times, going to like hockey camp in the Northeast PA. She's just someone who I owe a debt of gratitude for being here alive in this world. And when I began making bread, I wanted to name the business after something that would resonate, and a strong feminine name and having a family bond at the same time, to me was appealing at the beginning. Awesome. So it's like easy way to honor my ancestors and put some family roots down here in Pacifica.
Yeah. And, God rest her soul, she's not with us anymore.
It's true.
96,
yeah.
Right?
96. She passed away last summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. My condolences to your family. And,
thank you.
She had an awesome life. And
she did.
She created, she's got a grandson that's killing it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. We were sending her chocolate croissants twice a week towards the end there.
Awesome.
But, yeah, she lived a long.
So what kind of
life.
So as far as influence, like what kind of influence did she give, and was she often cooking a lot too? And
no, the cooking came from my mom.
Okay,
my mom was really, she was a presence in life, but she was always like, how do I say? I don't know, someone we wanted to, she wasn't like a full on part of our childhood or upbringing. Like we were like hanging out every couple of days. She was 45 minutes away from where we grew up.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little more intermittent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Summer times and long weekends and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, both my grandmothers were far away. So it was very, very intermittent. Like one's lived in Boston on the East Coast, in Vermont area, and then the other one was in Japan.
Yeah.
So it was like not often, but when they were there or I got to see them, it was, it's huge, right? It's actually kind of, sometimes it feels more impactful because you appreciate that time.
Yeah.
A little more.
Yeah.
So, really cool.
Yeah.
And then, let's get into what your mom was making. What'd you eat growing up at home and stuff?
Health food. Fresh foods. Yeah. I was always spiteful of my mom for that. I would go over to my friend's house and they would have the good treats, and I would be like, Mom, why can't we have fruit roll-ups? And she'd be like, hell no.
Yeah.
Or I was the kid, like, I always wanted to go to fast food restaurants or just get sugary, salty things that she didn't want to feed us.
As most kids do.
Yeah.
As most kids do. Growing up in the Bay Area, there's a lot of crazy stuff out here.
Yeah.
All the burger joints, fried chicken, you name it. That's great though. I mean, home cooking's the best, of course. And health food wise, you mean it was just always super clean, and
fresh and
vegetables.
Yeah, and lettuces and salads and kale salads, and
it's not a bad thing.
No, it was great. And to this day, I owe my mom a huge debt of gratitude for showing me how to make like good stuff out of good stuff. Yeah.
Because it's funny, when you think about that growing up, I'm the same way. Like, I didn't want to eat my vegetables, or broccoli tastes like crap. And then now you're like, that's actually like, there's ways to make it taste good too.
Yeah.
Because there's ways, like I've talked to a couple people on this podcast, they just had it prepared totally incorrectly, right? Like just boiled to nothing. It's turned, it's not even color green anymore. And then you can't expect them to like it, right?
Oh, no.
And then there's the other way where like, I've had it prepared, it's grilled and then tossed in some nice olive oil with some salt and pepper and some garlic and, some seasonings and other, ingredients. Yeah. And then you're like, well, that tastes fantastic.
Although my mom will deny it. She'll say that I didn't eat anything and that me and my brothers were terrible eaters and very picky, but thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Appreciate
I mean, you got to eat what's on the table, right?
Or don't.
Yeah, or you don't get to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think kids are spoiled these days.
That's what I'm teaching my daughter.
Yeah.
Like,
awesome.
you don't want to eat that?
Yeah.
Then tough.
Yeah. I mean, before, when I was younger and before the restaurant industry influences you to eat as fast as possible, because there is no time in the day to eat, I was a slow eater. I was the last one at the table, and I'm like, you got to eat what's there. You don't get to break off and go whatever, watch TV for the night or do whatever. You got to finish your food, and that's it. If you're the last one and there's people like doing other stuff, like families doing other stuff, I'm sitting there like, all right. And then all of a sudden, like, flash forward like 10 years later, I'm like, gone.
Yeah.
All the food's gone.
All the things.
Working on a line or something. You don't eat till the end of the night, usually, for the most part. You may snack or something, sneak a snack in the back or whatever, and then And the night, like, all right, what are we all eating? Or depending on where you work, if you get staff meal or it's make your own meal out of, the cheaper ingredients, right? For the most part.
Yeah.
And then you're eating that in like 5 minutes, and then you're packing up and going home.
Yeah.
Not the best way to enjoy a meal, but
on a milk crate in the backyard.
On a milk crate, or standing online and just like the casual behind the line eating too, sneaking a bite, throwing that down, and then back to work.
Back to it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But awesome, man.
Yeah.
Did you at what point did you come out to the West Coast? You grew up till.
That was after I was married as an adult.
Okay.
Yeah, we moved out here in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. Growing up in the suburbs of Philly, one of my first jobs was at a hoagie spot called Gitano's in South Jersey. And I just distinctly remember being there in the morning on Sundays when they would get their bread delivery, and like the show would stop and people would go over to the rolls and scope them out, and they would be these massive, like they were really big sandwiches. They were like almost 3 feet long.
Whoa.
Yeah, and they would break the rolls down into different sizes for their menu, and it was awesome.
What'd they put on the hoagies?
Oh, they had a full sandwich menu.
Okay.
Yeah, they had all the things. They did cheesesteak hoagies and chicken cheesesteak hoagies and all of them.
And then that smell bringing everybody over.
Yeah.
The fresh bread.
Yeah. It never gets old.
No. And then we'll get into it, but you make hoagies here as well, right?
We do, yeah.
So, taking a little bit of that East Coast over here to the West Coast.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. I try to design the menu here based on the food that I enjoyed growing up, the food that I would eat.
Yeah. And before you got over here, kind of bring us up to speed from, when you, I think you're saying like around like influence with food, obviously early as a childhood, but did you start working in the industry early?
I did, yeah. Okay. As a kid, like my first jobs from like 14 up until like 21 were in first fast food, and then like convenient food, like pizza shops and the hoagie shop, and then some coffee shops in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mostly in Philly?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then early 20s, did a couple years as like a bike messenger in Center City, Philly, and like learned to be an independent person, like without a car, and just lived on a bicycle as my sole form of transportation for almost a decade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I was always good with computers. So for the time I got out of high school until 22, 23, I would do the coffee shop thing, but also make stuff online. I'd meet some designers in like a 2-year like unaccredited art school in Philly, and through skateboarding, I was able to get a job at a design agency. It might not make sense, but it was like I was a skater, and I appreciated that type of activity. Yeah, so I was able to meet people who were making stuff, but were having difficulty getting their content on the internet in the late 90s and early aughts.
This is the old days too.
Yeah.
Magazines and posters and newspapers and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of these guys were designers, graphic designers, and screen printers, and they just weren't able to get stuff on the internet. It was still kind of awkward and difficult. We didn't have like a Squarespace or anything like that. So,
yeah, right.
I was able to find a niche making websites for those guys, and that kind of helped me network myself into a job at Gyro, and then onward into other places in New York and out here in San Francisco.
Awesome. So then you end up just doing mostly graphic design.
Software development.
Software development.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ended up as a software developer for web stuff, full stack for 17 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then the skating definitely has an influence, you know.
For sure.
You look around the shop, there's boards.
Yes.
There's decks, I should say, up on the wall.
Yes.
And we even got a couple down here.
Yeah, there's skateboards everywhere here. And it's just another way for me to show my appreciation to the cultural aspect of life that influenced me as a young adult and showed me about music and creativity
and those two collide, art and skating, for sure.
Very.
Yeah. I mean, you look at every single deck on that you have and out there.
Yeah.
It's they're all different. And how? Just tell us a quick story how the skating and the software development like connected.
Oh, it's just in the school, you would design classes. There'd be people who would show up with a board and be like, "Hey, do you want to go cruise around, skate?" And they'd be like, "Yeah." And then you're spending a lot of time together, and they start working on.
You start networking.
Yeah, like how they ask questions about like how to get this visual file onto the internet.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And then somebody's like, "Hey, how can you make it so that I can edit my own website?" And you're like,
yeah.
And then you learn about PHP and database stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that takes us to pretty much like you've been working in software development, and then what causes you to stop doing that? And
well, there's a great sense of dissatisfaction just being stuck behind a computer all day long, day in and day out, for 15, 20 years. It's different. I'm not going to say it's an easier way to live, because any type of job you're going to do, no matter what, is going to have some difficulties and some challenges. But it was very unfulfilling to be able to, work on Cool Brand X's spring model year website for the next season again and again and again, and not have anything that's really truly something that you express creatively. And I had just become a parent at that time in 2015, sorry. And as a person who always appreciated food from all the aspects, from restaurants, going out to eat and working in them as a kid, we wanted to eat well while we were doing paternity and maternity leave with our daughter. So having my parents visit us here and help us out, we would go get bread in San Francisco at Tartine. And it is close to Pacifica, but it's not an easy day to spend when you have a newborn. You're driving.
It's at least a half day trip.
Yeah. So my mother suggested off the cuff one day that we make bread. And as someone who was a lifelong nerd and liked nerdy things, once I started to research sourdough, I just became obsessed. Head over heels.
Dove head first.
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah. Completely and madly into it. And I love it. I love bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of us do, especially me as well. And that's kind of, like definitely the kind of thing I wanted to talk to you about initially, because Matt's probably the first, this podcast will keep going, but Matt's probably the first like professional baker I have on that has a bakery that's always making bread. Like there's other places that just, they make it occasionally for specials or something or bring it in. But Matt is making it every day, day in, day out, 7 days a week. Yeah. Tell us what it was like diving in, kind of explain that process. It's very detailed. It's, I've got tons of questions. You could probably go into the science of it
a little bit.
And then I would say I kind of want to hear how many loaves did you make before it was the one,
Oh,
so
that will never happen.
Okay.
It's a very zen thing.
You're just set to stay in the...
You're constantly trying to achieve something that is quote unquote perfect, but it's this work, and bread is a very mindful process where you just have to be present with it and recognize that today's bread won't be here tomorrow, and that tomorrow's bread is going to be slightly different than today's. It's something that I deeply appreciate about this. It's there's moments when you do create a beautiful object and you're like, whoa, but or you hear the sound of the crust cracking after the loaves come out of the oven. As the hot bread like collapses a little bit, and it just like sounds like Rice Krispies in a cereal bowl. Like it's an amazing moment. That anyway.
Awesome. So tell us, how you got dive it. You said, all right, I'm gonna start. Mom says make some sourdough.
Yeah.
And here Matt goes.
Well, no, we wanted to do it together as a family thing. And then just the obsessive nature of my personality started to like dive deep into this wormhole of learning about grain and whole grain, and then what is sourdough, what is a leavener, what is yeast, why does yeast and lacto fermentation, lactic acid, create that particular flavor, and how to control it. And, it was an obsession. It is an obsession.
It is, for sure. Yeah. So you can kind of give us a little bit of the process. You don't have to give any trade secrets, but just give us, kind of the process of what it takes to, make you got a Kosoy loaf. So Kosoy sourdough. To make a loaf of bread, it starts with building a leaven, and that starts 36 hours before the bread is baked, and we'll mix flour and water and a small amount of sourdough starter together and just let that slowly ferment for 18 hours. Okay.
Then we'll add that to more flour and water and some salt, and through a process of mixing the dough, develop a very highly hydrated wheat dough. And it takes 6 hours of bulk fermentation every day, and then a final proof of another 18. So like 32 to 36 hours.
Bulk fermentation meaning the mass amount of what you're going to make for the day?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we make approximately 350 pounds of dough per day on average of just this one style of sourdough, and we focus pretty much solely on that.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll get into what we have in front of us here too, which is an array of what Matt's been cooking.
Yeah.
But why don't you tell us you pretty much 2015 started diving into bread, and then what led you up to opening the bakery?
Well, at that time I was searching for some sort of personal entrepreneurial project. I didn't know what. I was thinking software, some sort of.
You wanted to work for yourself?
Yeah, exactly. And I was at the farmer's market here in Pacifica, and I was thinking about bread, and I just asked Colleen and Aaron. I said, hey, what do I need to do to be able to get a booth, to be able to maybe sell bread here? And they helped me with the legal structure that I would need to be able to sell a product. And I had already done some business stuff as a freelancer, so I had some idea of like how to set up a business, and committed. I committed. I committed to doing the farmers market in April 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had some deadlines, and this was like Thanksgiving in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah. So I created some deadlines for myself that were pretty real, and set some goals and priorities of like learning how to produce enough bread to be able to maybe make it through a 4-hour market.
Yeah. And you were working out of a small kitchen in San Francisco, right?
Well, first it was my house, actually.
Okay.
I got my home certified as a cottage food operation, and I was looking into going like the Rondo home baker route with like the micro bakery, but my house is super old. It has weird infrastructure with electrical and plumbing, so I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And one early session in my neighborhood, I blew up my oven at home. Blew it up, fried the circuitry.
Okay.
So like a brand new oven. We had just renovated our kitchen, and it was great. Yeah, under warranty, got that sorted out. But
Okay.
Yeah, very quickly realized I needed to work somewhere with a larger capacity, somewhere that had like the utility structure to be able to make a lot of bread.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then from the farmer's market, how long were you doing the farmer's market before you decided to open your own spot?
Well, even before the farmer's market, I was still like uninformed.
You were home baking, right?
Yeah, and I needed to learn like how to scale my formula up, how to take my idea of making a bread and how to be able to, produce it in bulk. And I took 2 weeks of what I call bread boot camp over at SFBI. Mm-hmm. And I was able to stage at a couple places, through that 2 week experience, and learned a little bit about the process there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of started like at home, right? And then were you just giving it to friends and family, and then started to
2 loaves, 4 loaves,
and then they're like, I want more of it.
Yeah, this is really good, and you should keep on doing this. A lot of positive encouragement and support.
That's great.
And it's a niche too here in this community. There's really nobody making high hydration sourdough, so
yeah, it's definitely pretty rare.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And at what point did you reach the breaking point to open your own spot? So you're doing the farmer's market for a while, right?
Yeah. So to go from the farmer's market, I did that for like a year and a half.
Okay.
And I had started to build out like a small wholesale business with some local grocery stores here in Pacifica and Half Moon Bay. We're still selling to them today, actually. But yeah, I had gotten to a point where I was at an inflection point. Like, what do I do with this that I've created? I can't continue to operate out of this commercial kitchen because it's just not cost or time effective. I had an opportunity to lease a bakery in Half Moon Bay, so I was able to like kind of grow out of that first space and into a second one, but I was still a tenant and working around other schedules. It was exceptionally challenging because you're just working when there's like off hours, as the bread's pretty messy and takes up a lot of space. So I got some advice from a local artist here in Pacifica named Linda Fahey, and she basically said, if you get an opportunity to lease a space, go for it, and you just figure it out. You will be able to do it. And I was like, that is good, solid advice, Linda. I appreciate that. And give her a lot of credit for helping me to decide to lease this storefront.
That's awesome. Shout out to Linda, pushing you over the edge a little bit, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of the same with me with this podcast. Like it's just needs a little shove off the cliff a little, and then like, all right, you figure the rest out. Yeah. That's awesome. And so you guys have been open since 2017?
This brick and mortar opened in 2019.
2019. Okay.
Yeah. So we did farmers markets, like a headless bakery thing.
Okay.
For about a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
And we leased a space in September 2018.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So about Halloween of 2018, I'd be working through the farmers markets and wholesale delivery, and during the week I would come in to here with an 8-foot ladder and just disassemble this place piece by piece.
I saw some of the old pictures.
Just demo, all solo demo, no utilities. It was pitch black, no water, and just took all the electrical back to the panel and started taking the frame out and making a mess.
And then here we are.
Yeah.
Awesome place. I've been here a few times. We've met a couple times, and I knew I wanted to talk to you for sure. Tell us a little bit about the bakery, what your idea was behind it to open a brick and mortar, and then we can get into kind of what you have and
so
what people can expect.
Yeah, Pacifica was a town that we moved to in 2014, and it's a great place, but as far as like food options or cafe options, it's like kind of slim pickings. There wasn't really much of anything. So having started doing the bread, I like appreciated what I was doing, and I knew that there's a lot of other places out there that offer like a cafe service, and I felt that I could sort of achieve two things, like to create a production space to be able to make the products, and also to create a space for people to gather and like get a nice hot cup of coffee and like a pastry in the morning too, a breakfast sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got quite a bit of stuff on display right in front of us. Probably the coolest display we had so far. Matt, why don't you go through everything that's right here in front of us that you got?
Cool. So starting over here on the left, we have our morning bun. Then we have the pan of chocolate. We have our traditional croissant, the bear claw with hibiscus glaze, and that looks to be like it's a millet muffin over there. Mm-hmm. In the middle row, we have 60/40 whole wheat sourdough. We got the sesame rye sourdough with tahini, and then on the end we have the Kosoy sourdough.
Is that another Kosoy?
Yeah, we have the micro dough up front.
The mini one?
Yeah, and then the
standard
Kosoy, and then this is our baguette.
Baguette, beautiful. And then when you say 60/40, what are you referring to?
I am referring
people that don't understand that.
Yeah, so it's our whole wheat bread, but 60% of the formula is stone ground whole wheat.
Okay.
And 40% is our bread flour from Cairn Spring Mills.
Okay. And that was one of my other questions was who does your flour and all that good stuff.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
We source grain from 3 purveyors. We use Cairn Spring Mills, Central Milling, and Early Bird Farm and Mill out in they're in Nevada City.
Okay.
Farmer Drew Speroni at Early Bird is he's amazing. He's built his milling operation from the ground up. He's a machinist and a farmer and an engineer, and he's connecting the full link for the small business green economy. He's got the relationships with Frog Hollow Farms, Pleasant Valley Farms out there who are growing wheat and grain, rye as a cover crop in the winter in their regenerative farming practices. And he mills it for us fresh every 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you've probably connected into some of the other farms. So like some of your other products that you have out for like your specials and your sandwiches and stuff like that, are those coming from other farms too? Yeah,
we go to the farmers market every week here in Pacifica. La Milpa Farm is the one we've been buying some stuff from the most this year, but shout out to Ariel Flygirl and Matt and Jen Sims. And right here in Pacifica is Lenny Roberts, who's started a very interesting urban farming operation here on some underutilized abandoned space right here in downtown Pacifica.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. You get greens from him, kale, turnips, some radishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then meat-wise, where's that come from if you're getting any meat?
I don't know where the meat comes from. We're not going to talk about that.
Who knows? And then, so we can get into...
That's all Jerry.
Yeah?
Yeah. He's our chef.
Okay.
I mention him from time to time.
Okay.
He's a good guy.
Right on.
Yeah.
And then, you have quite the crew. You have, almost 3 dozen? Is that correct?
No. We're at like...
How big's your crew now?
20.
20. Okay.
20 all day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a super solid crew right now. They're amazing people.
Yeah.
They care so much. They're passionate. They work super hard.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And, we can get into kind of some of the stuff that you have on the menu, but there's, how many, that was my question, is to get to Kosoy loaf, about how many loaves did you think you made before you're like, I think that's okay. Like it wasn't the so-called perfect, but it was like,
I'm happy.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get to
start dancing?
Yeah. So that took years, directly, years from starting with a recipe that I read on the New York Times, just beginning at the very, very basic back in like 2016.
Okay.
And then as I learned more about flour and I learned more about grain, I started to
developing.
Tweak on the at SFBI. They you learn about something called baker's math, and baker's percentages. And this is a method that you can use to design a recipe and scale it up and down so that you have consistency. Whether it's one loaf or 1,000 loaves, it's always going to be the same.
Okay.
Based on weight. So I learned about baker's math, and then from there I was able to just do tweaks on the percentages of the type of flour that I would put into my bread.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it is, I read that it's almost, is it almost a 40-hour rise as far as fermentation goes that you're doing now at this point?
For this style of bread, it takes almost 3 days.
Yeah. So I want people to understand that the work that goes in.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. Starting at like noon approximately, it's when we feed our starters and build our levains for the next day. It's really interesting how different things affect the bread. It's very much alive, and it can respond to our emotions and the weather and the humidity, especially, and the
Pacifica air.
Yeah, or even like the particular batch of wheat. You know, what we order, a lot number changes, and you get like a slightly different harvest from your one style of flour, and you might need to add more water to the dough, or like a little bit more salt, or whatever, to control the fermentation that day.
Yeah, and that's the technique with balancing all that, and that's what makes you who you are.
Yeah.
Here today.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And we're just talking about bread. We haven't even talked about croissants yet.
No, yeah. We'll get into that for sure. And yeah, we'll go through. I mean, we just kind of mentioned pretty much like this is like your mainstay of the bakery.
Yes.
In front of us, but you got other stuff too. You have a seed loaf as well.
We do. Yeah. It's immensely popular. Early on in the beginning, when I started to do the farmers market booth, I wanted to offer something that was wheat free or gluten free, and also something that might be like pocket sized if you were like go on a bike ride instead of like an alternative like a Cliff Bar or something. Mm-hmm. And I found a recipe in a book, and I was like, I really like this format, but it's too savory for me. I want this to be a little bit more sweet. And use those methods that I learned to change it up and add some stuff and
put your own twist on it.
Yeah, so it's got dried fruit and a little bit more maple syrup, and it's really tasty.
Nice. Yeah. And then you also mention usually, like in your bio and stuff, is that you don't use any commercial yeast, right?
Yeah. So we there's a caveat to that. Yeah. With our sourdoughs, the big hearth loaves, mm-hmm. they have zero commercial yeast. They're 100% natural fermentation, naturally leavened breads.
Yeah.
Yeah. With a couple of our breads, like a custom breads that we do for some of our restaurant clients, they do have instant dry yeast added to them, commercial yeast, and that's because that's what we're actually trying to achieve, like a specific flavor. And also our croissant does as well.
Okay.
Yeah. The croissant this year is all new. I've been redeveloping that formula from the ground up now for like 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, that's been my sole obsession.
Yeah,
2023.
Your new obsession. And tell us about it. You started off first as a bread baker, and now you're getting into pastry. So how did that transition happen, and what's going on there?
It was out of necessity, but I because the pastry is like 45% of the business, mm-hmm. and I'd always trusted employees to hired employees to help me with that part of the work, but at a certain point I realized that like I just had to be able to own it myself and do it all myself, and that's what this year's has been about. And I've been obsessed with lamination and taking dough and layering it with butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about the rondo.
Oh, the sheeter.
Which is the sheeter. I ask everyone, we're a little early in the mix, but Matt had already told me the sheeter is his favorite item in the bakery right now.
When we acquired our equipment, it was always like the machine that I thought was like the most mysterious, because it's able to take a thing that has no shape at all, like it's just like a weird putty, or I don't know how you describe dough, to a person.
Big blob.
Yeah, and he would take that substance and then process it using your hands and craftsmanship into something that is very delicate and has all these like savory properties.
Yeah, and if you've never seen, like, you can always look it up, but if you've never seen how many layers are in croissant dough, there's a lot, and it's layers of butter, layering it in. How many layers about, you think?
81. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that compounding, or is it actually?
No, we do 2 folds on our dough.
Okay.
The first one is a double fold, and the second one is a single fold. And any of the pastry people will know what that means.
Sure.
And that's how we get to that number.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the magic number for you guys.
Yeah.
And explain the sheeter. So explain what
so it's 2 belts and rollers that are in the
Rondo
middle.
the brand?
Rondo's the manufacturer.
Okay.
And you have this lever that allows you to control the depth or the height of the rollers, these 2 rollers on mechanized rollers, and it allows you to precisely measure that thickness.
Okay.
And it allows you to just smash dough down to a very thin level. We go all the way down to about 3.5 millimeters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
When all said and done.
Maybe I'll have to come back and do some behind the scenes. Check it out.
That'd be great.
I would love to learn, make some bread with you too.
Come stash.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm down.
Yeah.
And then, so diving into having the sheeter, and then that leads you into making croissants and a bunch of other things, right?
Cinnamon rolls, pretzels. It's like a whole new section phase of career as a baker.
Yeah. And then you've kind of like, you got a little bit of everything too. Sometimes I come in here and there's pizza down.
It kind of goes with the bread.
Yeah, I think pizza. Last time I was here, I had breakfast and it was early, and I had the sourdough pancakes.
Yeah,
which I've never seen anywhere, hardly ever.
It makes sense. Like, right? we this business is focused on sourdough. Every product that, like, all of our croissants have sourdough. We've done cookies that have sourdough. It made sense to me to make things cohesive and have our kitchen produce a sourdough pancake.
Yeah, for sure. I got a couple of sourdough ideas for you.
I can't wait.
Not for the camera. We'll save it for later.
Sure.
Very cool. And it's kind of gone into, like, you even have some pantry items that are out. Like, are those some of the things you're making here, or are you bringing them in?
A little bit of both.
Yeah,
right?
Mix
of both. Yeah.
You guys make the jam, I think, right?
We do some jam in here, but not like a very high volume of it. We do like a couple different types of cheese we make in house, and we sell some pizza products that we sell. We do a grab and go pizza dough. Yeah. It's interesting how you start to develop products like that, almost like out of necessity.
There's just people coming in requesting it.
Well, for the most part. And then also we have this space, this venue with which to retail things, and it's up to us to be creative and have fun.
Yeah, it's such a nice space, and you got a lot of people coming through here all the time. Even just dropping in from the city or coming up from the peninsula.
Yeah.
And you're right in that kind of middle.
Yeah, we're like right off the highway here, right when you drop into Pacifica.
Not far from the pier.
Nope.
Yeah. Very cool. And then, is there something that we don't know about?
Well, it's that location that we were just talking about is like also a part of the product, because bread is a fermented product, and it utilizes the immediate environment to help with that fermentation. Here in particular in San Francisco Bay Area is a particular strain of lactic acid bacteria that create that tang in the dough, and I believe that our physical location here in Pacifica, just like a couple 100 feet from the ocean, affect our final product. We don't really, the bakery doesn't get too hot in the summer. It doesn't get too cold in the winter, and
kind of run that medium, like in that mid range.
There's always like a salinity in the air from the ocean that you can, it's like an ocean funk. Yeah. But that has an effect on us people, and also our yeast and our bacteria.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I get it. Is there, and then I was kind of getting into, like, is there anything you want people to know that they don't think they know about Rosalind Bakery?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of paradoxes. Like, some people are frustrated when we close early, or some people are, there's a big line on a weekend, and we like to take our time with each customer and make them feel like they're experiencing, it's like not just like a get here and go type of thing. It's like
you're providing a good service. Yeah,
it's a community engagement. Like, we're here for our neighbors and their kids and our kids.
And I think it's like it's part of the. I was talking to, shout out to Guillaume, he knows this very well. It's like, if your hours are hours, those are your hours. If you come in 2 minutes before we close, you're gonna come get something to eat. But if we have, those are our hours.
Yeah, like,
I'm gonna take care of you no matter what. Yeah. But once we're closed, that's the end. But as far as being within the hours, we'll take care of you big time.
Yeah. Like, don't expect to show up on like Thanksgiving Eve at 1 p.m. and expect to get a loaf of bread. Like, that's just not. Yeah. It's not gonna. Don't be mad at us for that.
Yeah. It's you've set an expectation, and there are expectations to be met. Yeah. And then there's the kind of rule set of like, hey, you're setting yourself up for failure if you're going to go last minute. You forgot to order. Like, if you do pre-orders for something special, and then you didn't pre-order, and you're running around last minute looking for something, you're just going to get what you get.
Yeah.
And then
we can only make what we make. And
I can appreciate that, like providing that service, because I think I always want people to understand that the time it takes to make something, especially as this is a craft, this is art as well. Like, your mix of everything kind of blending all together.
Oh yeah.
There is so much time involved in this, and by the time you get it, it's like, enjoy it and cherish it. And then, if it takes you another 10 minutes to get it, I mean, Matt's taken 40 hours before that's sitting in front of you. So
yes,
I think that's kind of what I wanted to convey to some people about what it takes to make really good bread.
Yeah. I like to say that bread and baking is like the hub of a wheel, and the spokes of the wheel are agriculture and the economy and physics and math and art and design and energy and food. And bread is it's everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Right there with you. And then we can kind of get into, a little bit of some of the other stuff, but like a lot of times is I ask people about their local stuff that's around you, things that you like. What are your favorite eats, or do you have anything favorite, or you got any, local businesses you want to mention or talk about?
Big shout out to Scott Clark, Dad's Luncheonette.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Huge fan of Scotty and his team down there.
Awesome.
Yeah. He opened up his burger spot the same year that I started making bread, and then it was like late August 2017 when I started the Half Moon Bay Farmers Market. I met him, and I was like, this guy's crazier than I am.
Yeah.
And
and he was like a full-blown Michelin star chef for years before he opened it, right?
Yeah, CDC, Saison.
Yeah, there you go. You're not Wyatt knows him too from Breakwater Barbecue.
Oh yeah.
So you guys speak very highly of him. So he's very great. Cool. Yeah, I've had the burger. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's on our bread. We developed a custom bread for him. Like when I was at the market, I was like, after I'd be done, we'd barely get to market on time because at that time we were working all night long to be able to produce. And I'd leave the kitchen at like 7 a.m. and do deliveries and get down to Half Moon Bay at like 8:45 to set up a booth start selling by 9, and we'd be sold out by 11. Like there'd be nothing left. Just like people would fiend and froth and just scream and fight for the bread, and I'd be done. And as soon as he would open, I'd just like 11 a.m. get a burger, sit on the curb, start talking, and got the idea to like try to develop a bread for his burger that would work. And
it works.
Yeah, it works.
It works really well.
Yeah, we've been consistently making that bread now for 5 years.
Okay.
Even when we shut down the wholesale and farmers market business while we were under construction, we were still making bread for the restaurant. And I had like some kit that I would keep in my garage and go take the dough and the ingredients over to the commercial kitchen and bake it all night, slice it at 6 a.m, deliver it, and then come back to here to do whatever project we would need to do for the day.
Beast, you're a beast. And people understand that's work, man. You putting it in.
Yeah, because like building this bakery was more than just developing the recipes. It was learning about permitting and construction planning.
Yeah. And then getting it into people's hands and letting people know about it, where to get it. And, and then spreading it out. Because I know you've got a ton of purveyors too. Yeah. We don't have to go through that list. That list is on your website. Yeah. But you've kind of are providing your bread all over the Bay Area. Yeah,
it's heavily in the city, and definitely down Half Moon Bay, and we're excited.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's been a pretty good year.
Yeah. And then, I don't want to get too much into it. It's kind of like a known topic, but like obviously the pandemic, like how was that for you? And did you just push through with, knowing that you had a product that was a perfect to go item, so to speak?
Yeah. It was.
How was that for you guys?
It was, it changed everything for us. It was like kind of like being in the right place at the right time, like all of a sudden I was getting hit up by friends from high school in the East Coast that I had heard from in 5 years. They were like, hey, you're making bread, tell me how you to do this. And I'd be like,
oh, because they're stuck at home.
Yeah, and they're they're awesome. Caught on to like that sourdough trend. And and then out here, people couldn't buy grain at the store. All the flour was consumed, and all the yeast, you couldn't buy any of that stuff. And we just started cracking open bags of flour and selling them by the pound. One weekend in like the peak, we sold like 500 pounds of flour on a Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something you didn't expect to be selling, right?
No, but it was interesting how like we pivoted into this like quasi, specialty grocery store type of situation. And it hasn't ever really made a huge dent on the business, but it's been something that's like added to the experience of coming here.
Yeah, and you do sell your starter as well, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah.
So you can come here and get the sourdough starter.
Yes, and we'll provide you with some instructions on how to maintain it. My buddy Travis designed like a little one-page zine he illustrated for us, and we'll give you a copy of that.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you come by.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite eats? You got some favorite spots?
Outer Lands Burger Night. I'll just call that out. I'll go there.
Which one?
Outer Lands.
Outer Lands.
Yeah. Shout out Dave, even though he sold the place. I love Outer Lands. And recently the restaurant that's been resonating with me is over in Oakland. It's Day Trip. They're just fantastic. Like a lot of their food's fermented, and I'm a huge fermentation nerd. I think it's fascinating how these bacteria can create deep flavor.
Yeah, is it like more like pickles and different stuff like that too?
It's hard to describe, but yeah.
All right, Day Trip.
Check them out. Yeah,
let's check it out.
Yep.
Any others?
Other food spots. I don't know, man. Oasis Vietnamese food right across the street here in Pacifica. I eat there like twice a week.
Yeah, been there before.
Yeah, they're great.
Cool.
Taqueria Pacifica too, and La Perla.
Okay.
Here in town.
Right on.
Yeah, I'm just shouting out the places that like I eat at a lot. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, we cook at home, and I don't know. I do like going out to eat, but
of course.
Super spendy.
It is pricey. And then you're talking about, when we get into tools, you have a big one.
Yeah.
What's some of the small stuff that becomes your favorites?
Yeah. The bicycle cutter. That one's a really interesting tool. It's like 5 pastry cutters that are connected on a series of hinges to be able to like cut croissant dough evenly and precisely.
Okay.
We use these stainless steel spackle knives here for scraping sourdough around our table.
Mm-hmm.
And at home, just a lot of cast iron stuff. Large cast iron.
I love cast iron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was baking at home, I would use their combo cooker. I would have like 4 of them in my oven at one time to be able to bake bread in. You get a great crust with that piece of equipment.
Awesome.
Yeah. And they're cheap, like $25.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then, kind of closing it out, it's up to you. What anything else you want to mention? And then I leave the floor to you as far as advice and any promotions you got coming up. Obviously, this podcast is going to come out in a few months, but,
Yeah.
anything you want to discuss?
Well,
Let us know.
I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to make a shop and be able to make things in that shop every day. I love it. I love being able to make this food, and it's like a privilege. I feel lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, and we're glad you're doing it. And the journey is only just getting started. And Matt's going to leave us with some advice and kind of some things that he wanted to mention and kind of his thoughts on a lot of different things, especially with revitalization of this area. And we're here in Manor Plaza and Pacifica. And
yeah,
Matt, kind of close us out and give us your thoughts.
Yeah. So here in Pacifica, it's like we're so close to the city, but we don't have any of the same amenities. And this section of town was underdeveloped, or some sort of like blight had taken in effect here. So through the bakery, I created an opportunity to help revitalize this section of town and provide a new service that didn't exist in the past. So that was something that I deeply appreciated, and it's motivating me to want to like keep working hard to be able to continue that effort to do like real redevelopment and revitalization of a community. It's something that I just don't take it for granted.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And you're besides talking to contribute to the community, you were talking about how everything in here kind of attaches to that, right? We were talking about kind of the flour that you get from up north, to some of the produce, some of the techniques, and kind of your experiences you had on the East Coast, to putting hibiscus syrup on your bear claw, right?
Yeah, like in it's
all of it's connecting.
It's a lot of, it is all connected, and it's all through the opportunity to be able to make a thing. When I was younger and I first started to be like an independent teenager where I could like go out and do stuff, I fell in love with skating, and I love the idea of like trying a thing over and over and over again until you're able to do that thing on command. And here we have the opportunity to create like that every day, and it's something that is different, but it is still connected. And here, like we mentioned the bear claw, it's like we had an incident occur where like a piece of equipment broke, like our bread slicer broke, and we had 90 loaves of bread that we like couldn't sell to a restaurant because you can't expect somebody to precisely slice that much bread by hand. So we in the moment, we took an ingredient that we had developed for one product and then used it and create a whole second one. There's like an improvisational aspect to stuff here that occurs in the moment. And I don't know, it's like,
And it's also, and you were also saying that, also creates zero waste, like, or minimal
reduces
waste.
the waste. Yeah.
Minimal waste.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it means we have to make more of like a filling or like make gallons of syrup instead of like a couple quarts. But, it's like with our cinnamon rolls, for example, like we use the trimmings of our croissant dough that would historically would just get thrown out. And we would have made a whole nother dough. But now we're able to like use the tools, use the dough sheeter to process that trim and then turn it into a whole nother thing that is, it's a wildly popular product.
Yeah. And that's really cool. And then, last thing, you kind of leave us your thoughts on the process of this business that you came into with little experience as far as opening your own hospitality business.
Yeah. So we were just talking about that, and here, like, I had 17 years of experience doing software, and then decided to open up a wholesale retail bakery. So there's a lot of headwinds for a person who doesn't have that professional background, and I don't have investors. I don't have anybody backing me. I'm independent, and I have to deal with that all the time, the decisions that I make and the choices I make in regards to like equipment or space or whatever it is. And it's
people.
Yeah, people. It's exceptionally challenging. All of the things. It's like there's you read about it all the time. Like Tracy Desjardins down in Palo Alto had like a Michelin-starred restaurant, was only open for like 6 months, or like some other business, and gets the plug pulled on them by their investors because things aren't working. It's like we don't have that here. We just have the opportunity to make things every day and to work hard to make it all work, and we're doing it in the face of all that adversity. It's it's motivation to want to be successful.
I'd say, and then probably my last thing to ask you is, what drives that for you? And then what advice would you give someone that's diving into something, not maybe necessarily sourdough, but like they're into something and they're like not sure if they should do it?
Yeah.
And your kind of thoughts on that.
We were also saying a moment ago that like a real baker is going to be able to understand the mechanical and electrical requirements for the facility to be able to use the tools that enable a production. And if you're going into a thing, like, you have to understand like electrical, be able to do like a basic load calc, and be able to learn about how to get a permit to be able to operate. And it ain't easy.
Yeah, getting it all to flow together.
Because that's all combined with like the actual work of making the thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started teaching myself how to make bread, I was obsessed over it, and I obsessed over every detail, and I was researching endlessly. And then after I learned enough to the point where I was happy with my product, I was then learning how to teach people to be able to make my bread, and then it goes on and on like that. And you hire up a staff to be able to help support your production, and then you're able to have some space to be able to learn how to do the bookkeeping and make sure that things are healthy. And then it evolves even more. And
full operation, full circle of everything.
But it's a mentor of mine said to me that if it was easy, then everybody be doing it, and because it's hard, it's worth doing. And it's I don't take for granted the opportunity that I've created by building this space and creating a workshop to be able to make food at a high level every day.
Yeah, and then on your kind of your statement of the bakery, it says "made all good."
Yeah.
What goes into what made you say that?
So those 3 words are like the best way to summarize how we do our product. Like, everything is all good. We go for a really good ingredient. It's made with good intention, in a good place, in a good way, and it is all good. Like if an error occurs, say you put too much water into the mixer and you overhydrate the dough, that's all good. It's an opportunity to learn how to troubleshoot, how to fix a problem. And it's that sort of mentality that having that positive attitude and the approach to the work that lets me like overcome any obstacle. And I appreciate being able to do this work every day.
I think that seals it right there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
You. Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Adios.
And as a quick reminder, the restaurants and gear talked about on each episode can be found on my website, foodoriginspodcast.com. I appreciate your support and thanks for listening.